Yeah, someone laughed, someone got the joke. Yeah, thank you. So today I'm going to talk about something that I've created. It's a sales framework. We're talking about growing, and the only way you grow is by increasing your sales, right? Now I'll put a little bit of a context around what I'm going to talk about. So what I'm going to talk about is a framework that will help organizations really sell faster, better, as long as the ticket size of your sales is slightly on the higher side. Right? So that's the caveat that I'm going to put around and take that in context with everything else that I'm going to talk about. Does it mean that it does not apply for anything else? No, it applies for everything else as well, but it applies a lot better when your ticket size of sales, typical sales average deal size is slightly on the higher side, right? So, to start with, so selling, as we know, is not the same anymore. It doesn't work. What used to work 3 years back doesn't work anymore. So does anyone here in this room agree, disagree? A quick show of hand. Does everyone agree to this? Disagree? Okay. So agree, I saw a few hands go up. Disagree, no hands. So that's true. The pace of change, is that a reason why the sales doesn't work the way it used to work in the past? Or is it because selling is neither an art nor a science? In most organizations, if you've done selling for some time, you will find that at times you do some things and you land up the sale. In other times you do the same thing and this happens. You fall flat on your face, right? So it's neither a perfect science nor a perfect art. So it's keeping on changing, right? Or is it because enterprise buying, as we know it, doesn't work as well? This is not something that I am saying. This is something that Gartner is saying. They did a big survey earlier this year, I think if I'm not wrong, last month. And they found that in their survey, in their questionnaire, of people who have just bought something, and they asked them to go through the entire journey of buying. And you can see the number of touch points, the number of people involved in the entire process is so humongous that it's not a joke anymore. So what they did is they kind of analyzed this and came up with 6 categories of jobs that typically a buying process in a large organization needs to go through, right? Before I come to that, so one of the things that I can see and tell from my experience of working with customers from across 7, 8 different countries is that the entire complexity in the buying process is because of 3 reasons. Number 1, the number of people involved. Number 2, the number of information exchanges that happen between those two people, between all of those people. And number 3, the entire discussion around value and what defines value for a particular set of people versus for the other set of people. And getting them all to agree to that is what probably is the biggest impediment or biggest roadblock in closing out sales. So here are 6 things that every sales buying process needs to complete as jobs to be done, right? You can see problem identification, solution exploration, requirements building, supplier selection, and then, as I said, validation and consensus creation are probably the biggest steps in terms of time, effort, and energy. So what does all of this mean for us as the people who are trying to sell, right? So it means is this. It means that you're no longer selling as in selling to someone, but you're actually leading them through a buying process. What it means is also the fact that you also need to kind of understand where you are in the buying process. You need to understand who your key stakeholders are. You need to understand what each one of their value drivers are. You need to understand where the entire organization needs to come together, and that is when you can actually lead them through the buying process. So what I have done in the past 3-4 years, based on all my experience and working with more than 1,000 plus customers in my role at SAP, is come up with a sales framework. It's a sales process, right? Which I'm going to talk about in the next 15 minutes or so. This framework, I'm calling it a simple or simpler framework. Now, you'll find that this is like a flywheel that Prasanna just spoke about, right? You keep doing this and you keep getting better at doing this. Now you'll find that the process starts with surprise, with insight, and the next step, you inspire them with a vision, you motivate them to act, you kind of position yourself as the person or the team who can actually deliver the solution, lead the process of the entire consensus creation and validation, and then execute the vision. So I'm going to talk about this in a little more detail so as we go along. So as I said, it's a flywheel. It's a positive spiral. The more you do it, the better you do it, the better you get at doing it. And the more impactful the results become, right? So that's the flywheel concept. You put in $1, you get $6 or $3 out of it. And then you put those $3, you get $18 out of it. So that's the flywheel effect that this process also has from a sales perspective. So let's talk about the first step, which is surprise with insights. So why surprise? The way our brain works today is that it's like a pattern matching machine, right? So the moment you find something which doesn't match your existing patterns, it immediately puts all your attention on that particular item. Now, surprise for the sake of surprise doesn't help. Surprise with insights. When I say insights, what do I mean? Can you find something which is relevant, which is something that is critical for someone, and yet they are not aware of it themselves? So that's what we are looking at. We need to surprise with insight so that we can capture the attention of the people that you're trying to sell to or trying to lead, and thereby start the entire process. So the question then is, where do these surprise or these insights come from? So there are two ways from where these insights come from. So if you look at it, so the insights can come from individuals that you're dealing with, the teams that you're serving in your customer organization, the organization and their goals and challenges themselves, or the industries and industry challenges that the industry faces as a whole, right? It also starts with reality, which is where what people say that they have a problem. It comes from ideas or challenges that people face, and again, these are unspoken needs, but people know, but they don't talk about. This is also about frames, right? So where do they think? How is their thinking frame? And most critically, what are their mental models among which people work? So typically you'll find that we all have mental models among which we think, and based on those mental models we create frames of thinking from which arise ideas, and from where the reality kind of comes through, right? And it is true for each one of those four people. Now the thing is, wherever you want to talk to someone or where you want to gain insights, you need to go deeper the higher you go in the organization. So if you're talking to someone who's kind of let's say you're talking to someone in purchasing or procurement, so the insight can probably come from the first two frames. Whereas when you go talk to a CEO or a CFO, the insight that can actually surprise them, you'll need to go deeper into the mental models and industry and organization to find those insights, right? So the next step is inspire with a vision. So you do not lead someone unless you know what the destination is. So that's the job that today's sales organizations need to be able to do much better. Because customers are asking you or asking the sales guys, okay, what is it that you can do for us? We need to have a compelling vision which we can take to our customers and say, okay, this is what is today, this is what is the potential, and we need to excite them about the potential, right? So that is what is the first step or second step in the process in order to move forward. So that's the end state that you need to be able to inspire people for. And then comes is the motivation to act. So it's all good and nice to kind of show a good snazzy vision, to tell them that the potential that they exist for them to achieve, unless they are actually motivated to act. If you ask sales guys what is the number one problem that they face in closing deals, it is status quo. So can you defeat status quo? Can you actually ask your customers to go on a journey with you, right? So what does it take in order to motivate the customers to actually act? You need to provide clear options for change. You need to give option A, option B. Do not complicate things. You tell them that, okay, these are the options This is the vision, and in order to realize that vision, these are the options that you need to take. And then you provide them with a map and be the navigator. So you not only talk about the change or the vision that you want to take them through, you also talk to them about, okay, this is how you achieve that vision, and I'm here as your navigator to take you through those processes and achieve those change. So that's the next step, which is, you position yourself as the navigator for them and someone who can actually guide them and take them through the process of buying and support them in the entire process. You are the key, right? So when you actually ask buyers, when they've completed a purchase, as to know what is the biggest differentiator between the person or the organization that you bought from and the next competitor. So the worst thing that you can end up in a sales organization is end up number 2, which is the closest, the team that lost the sales at the very last thing. So if you ask salespeople, they will tell you, okay, either I want to get out or lose really early so I can focus all my efforts at some other customers, some other organization, or I win the deal. Because coming second is having put in all your energy, time, and effort and still not winning the deal. So if you ask customers who just recently bought, the thing that they say had the biggest impact in the entire buying process is not the product, is not the organization, is not the ecosystem that comes along. It's the sales experience that the sales guy has actually given them. It's the salesperson and the ability of that salesperson to actually give them, to create trust, to be able to guide them through the entire buying journey. So it is extremely critical to understand and position yourself, then your product, then your organization, and the ecosystem. It's not that you should not position all of them, but you need to position them in that particular order. Then comes the buying process itself, right? So you need to be the coach who can actually show how and where the process is going to go. You need to tell them that it is going to take some time, it is going to take a lot of things that needs to come together in order for the buying process to close and thereby the vision to be realized. You need to be able to build advocates in your customer organization and enable them to play on your behalf. That's what coaches do, right? So they don't go out and play in the field. They actually create a team, they create a strategy, they create a plan which the team can then execute and that thereby actually close the deal. So the last but not the least important thing is execute the vision. It is no joke that you kind of sell and run. You need to be involved and help the customer realize the vision. This is also the single most important thing that differentiates between good sales guys and great sales guys. This is the one single most important thing that differentiates between normal average SaaS companies versus the companies that Prasanna just spoke about, which can actually turn $4 million into $16 million of average revenue from the same set of customers. This is what builds trust. This is what helps customers to realize that you are someone who can actually make things happen. This is how you realize, you make your customers realize and understand that this is an organization, this is a person who once commits to something actually helps me realize that. Right? So this is the single most important differentiator that can actually help you grow really, really fast. So if you've seen the flywheel, there was at the center is a fulcrum which is called repeat, right? So you need to figure out that where in the process is the person that you're talking to and contextualize that and take them through the journey. So if it means that you move from, let's say, leading the process to again go back to talking about vision, you need to do so. So that's also the situational and contextual awareness that Prasanna spoke about earlier, right? So I'll try to tie it in with what the Gartner found in terms of the vision and the process that I spoke about. So you'll find that each one of these steps that I'm talking about also corresponds to some of those jobs to be done that Gartner found, which needs to be completed in order for the buying journey to complete. Right? So you'll find that problem identification is where the entire journey starts with surprise with insight, and then you go on a solution exploration. Of course, in the solution exploration phase, they will also look at other vendors, but as long as you are the one who is leading the entire buying journey, you are the one who's adding the most value, the chances that the customer will actually engage with you is way, way higher than anything else. So that's the entire process. If there's one thing that I want you to take away from this presentation, it's this one chart that captures the entire crux of what I'm talking about today. So what I'm going to do is, for the next 3-4 minutes, I'll also spend a little bit of time in terms of some tips and tricks that you can actually use today once you move out of the room, in order to be able to enable this flywheel as you go along. So what is it that you can do as you go along right now? So the best strategy in growing is land and expand. So what I see the most organizations, most startups and most enterprises struggle with is that there is no clear focus on where do you want to play. So you need to identify one focus market, you land in that market with the first 1 or 2 pilot customers, and then you expand. Of course, there are times when you need to also be open for opportunities, but very, very rarely I've seen organizations who sell in one industry, then go sell in another industry, then go sell in another industry, unless there is something that ties them all together. So what is it that ties all your customers together? What is it that makes all these customers similar in some aspect? You find that, you land a customer, you expand the customer, or in that industry. And that's how you need to grow. What it also does, it helps you make it easier to start the entire flywheel. So once you've landed a deal at a customer, you know that the insight that you started with could be customized for this customer, for similar customers, right? So that's how you kind of scale the entire sales model as well. So every time you talk to a customer about anything that you talk about, you need to have 2 different ways of communicating the same thing. So one is the left brain way, or the rational way. This is where you present facts and figures and numbers and studies that someone has gone through, versus a creative way or a story way. This is where you talk about an ex-customer kind of had this problem, this is how we solved the problem, and things like that. So you need to be able to say the same point in both ways. That allows you to actually address people who are either left brain focused, which is rational, versus more people who are gut based decision makers. So you need to be able to switch between each one of those modes depending upon the person that you're talking to and their preferred mode of listening and understanding. So always remember, start with why, what, how. So even if you look at the sales framework that I shared, it follows the exact same process. The first 3 are the why, what, and how. The next 3 again are why, what, and how. So this makes it easier for the people who are listening to you and who are engaging with you to follow the thinking that you have. So if you structure your thinking and presenting in this way, it's much easier for them to follow along as well. It's all about references. So every time you interact with a prospect or a customer, always ask them if they want to be a reference or if they can be a reference for you and your products and your services and you as an individual. Also ask them, who else can they refer to you? Is there a friend? Is there a colleague? Is there another person in a similar organization that you can refer us to, so we can go and talk? So sales organizations, large scale is achieved through references, because that reduces your cost of sales to a bare minimum, right? So always keep asking for references. One of the mistakes that people tend to do is they only ask for references after they have closed a deal. Not necessary. You can ask for references at every stage of the deal, as long as you have added value in that particular conversation. So that's the criteria. If you have not added value, don't ask for reference. But if you've added value, ask for reference. I've seen so many times people give references even though they may not have bought from you, or they might still be in the process of buying from you, just because the way you've interacted with them, the way you've added value through providing insights is actually something interesting for them. Last but not the least, always be learning. One of the things that I find the most challenging in sales organizations and salespeople is that they find that learning is a waste of time, which is farthest from truth when it comes to sales, because things are changing so fast. A new sales framework coming in today. Customers know a lot more about yourself, your product, your organization than you can think of and you can know. So it is extremely critical that you continue to learn, Learn about your product, learn about your services, learn about your competitors, learn about your customers, their businesses. That is where the insights will come from. Right? So that was my last slide. Here is my contact details. If there is anyone